Hello, and thanks for joining this webinar. So we'll just wait maybe half a minute or a minute for everyone to join. While we are joining, while we are waiting, can you please let me know where you're coming from or where you're joining from? I'm joining in from Zagreb from Croatia. And how about you? If you can let me just know the city and the country you're coming from. So if you joined through Zoom, you have this question pane. If you joined through LinkedIn, you can actually send a chat message. Okay, while we are waiting, just a couple of notes. First of all, we are recording this webinar and you'll be able actually to watch this recording, and during at the end of the webinar, actually you will be able to see the recording on the same page where you registered for the webinar. So if you registered through LinkedIn or YouTube, you will see on the same page where you're watching the webinar now. If you joined through Zoom, then you can actually see the recording. You will be able to see the recording on the same page where you registered for the webinar. Okay, I see Helen from UK joining. Okay, thanks for letting me know where you came from. Okay, second thing I wanted to let you know is that you'll be also able to download this presentation deck, and at the end of the webinar I'll actually let you know where to find the link to download the presentation deck. So if you can stick to the end of the webinar, then you'll know where to download the presentation. Okay, great. I think we can start now. So welcome to this webinar. Over ISO 27001, an overview of the ISMS implementation process. My name is 𝗪𝗲𝗴𝗏 and I'm the main ISO 27001 expert at 𝗹𝗲𝗴𝗲. And 𝗹𝗲𝗴𝗲 is a company that makes easy ISO 27001 easy to understand and simple to use. And as I mentioned, today's webinar is streamed through Zoom, but also through LinkedIn and YouTube. And it will last approximately 55, maybe 60 minutes. And I'll try to make it as interactive as possible. So by all means, please do send any questions that you're interested in, and you can actually send those questions during my presentation. You don't have to wait for this Q&A session. We'll, by the way, have this Q&A session at the end, but again, you can send your questions during my presentation so that I can answer your questions even during, even as I go through the presentation. Okay, I see also a message from Netherlands. Okay, great. Thanks for letting me know. Great. So let's move on to the next slide. So first of all, basically, why is this topic important? Because very often companies are, thinking about ISO 27001 only as I don't know, a bunch of documents or a set of documents, without really understanding that documents here are not so important as much as let's say really organizing your company in a better way and introducing a much better security. So in this webinar today, I'll explain you, how actually you need to prepare, what are the options for you to go actually into this implementation, but also what are the key steps. So you will see later on in the presentation there are 16 steps that you actually have to follow to complete your implementation and actually go for certification. And yeah, this webinar is basically intended for anyone who is doing this for the first time. So if you are really a beginner, if you don't know nothing about the standard, then really this is a webinar for you. If you're an advanced consultant or someone who is really doing this multiple of times, then you can actually take a look at some other webinars that go into much more depth into particular aspects of implementation. But again, this webinar today is really for beginners. All right, so one of the main points that you'll see that I'm actually making today is that this ISO 27001 implementation doesn't have to be only some kind of a bureaucratic job. You don't actually have to think about it only as a kind of an overhead. Actually, if you do it right, the standard can bring lots of benefits to your company. And among these benefits could also be new revenue, so new clients or keeping existing clients because you prove that you are secure. So I would primarily view this standard as something that helps your company operate or succeed in a better way. Good. So the agenda for today. I'll very briefly start with an overview of what are the most important standards in this ISO 27000 family of standards. And yeah, then I'll take you through these 16 steps towards the certification. And by the way, as I go through these topics for the agenda, you can let me know and send me which of these topics you are interested in the most. So if you like, I mean, if you want me to focus more during this webinar on any of these topics, then simply send me a message and I'll try to dedicate some more time on any topic that you find more interesting. Anyway, the next slide will be about how long does it take. So depending on the size of your company, what how many months can you actually expect? How much does it cost? So how to try to calculate the cost of this kind of a project? What are the 3 approaches to implementation that you can take? And also a very common challenge about finding resources for the implementation. Good. Okay, so yeah, let's start with the first slide here. So it's about a family of standards. So ISO 27001 is the most important standard in this family of standards. And by the way, I'm not sure if any one of you knows actually how many standards there are in this 27K family. There are more than 40, okay, 40. So even I didn't read all of them, so don't worry, you don't have to go through all of them. But if you're doing this for the first time, if you only want to implement the standards in your own company, then you only have to basically go through ISO 27001. Now, I'll show you a couple of more standards here, but they're mainly, let's say, interesting for people who want to do this for a living. So if you want to become a consultant, then you also might go for these other standards. So ISO 27001 gives you, I would say, a complete picture on how to manage security. It's a framework for managing this information security management system, or ISMS. And then within this framework, within ISO 27001, there are, I would say, a couple of key concepts. One is about risk management. So risk management is about how to find out what bad things can happen, and then how to find out what kind of controls you can actually use to decrease those risks. So this is basically risk management. And then the second concept is are of course these controls, the controls that you need to implement to decrease these risks, right? And then the third very important concept here is a measurement. So basically, how do you actually set expectations on what you want to achieve with those controls, and then also how you measure if you achieved those expectations. And basically these expectations are what you would normally call objectives. This is the terminology that uses the standard uses. So basically you need to set the objectives and then measure the fulfillment of those objectives. So if I can let's say emphasize a couple of most important concepts within ISO 27001, these are the 3 most important ones. Of course there are others, but I'm trying to simplify these things. And again, if you want to learn more, if you want to do this kind of security for a living, then you should probably read these other standards. So 27005 is a standard that describes risk management. 27002 is a standard that describes implementation of controls, and 27004 is a standard that describes how to set objectives and then how to measure the achievements of those objectives. All right, now let's move on to this 16 steps towards certification. And by the way, I know this will be quite a lot for you to learn, especially these 16 steps. And actually there is an article on 𝗏𝗲𝗴𝗏 website. It's called ISO 27000 Implementation Guide, checklist of steps, timing and costs. And we'll share with you now the link to this article. So you can actually open this article and find these steps and then read about those steps. After the webinar or whenever you have the time. So you'll find the link now in your chat window. And by the way, if you join the webinar through YouTube or through Zoom, you can simply click this link and it will open in your browser. If you joined the webinar through LinkedIn, then because of some limitations in LinkedIn, you can't actually click this link. So you can, the workaround for this is that you copy the URL and then open it in your browser and, paste it in your browser, and then you'll be able to open the article. Anyway, you can take a look at this article. It provides lots of details about implementation. Okay, so the first step is this management support. So this is something that really you need to do in the very beginning. I'll also mention this later on when it comes to resources and so on, but basically without a real management support you can't achieve anything. So it's really a must. This is something that you have to start with, and basically this management support means that you will get enough budget, meaning enough money and enough people to implement the project. The second step is that you actually establish the project, so that you define who is the project manager and potentially project team, these kind of things. I'll also mention this more in this other slide when I speak about resources. But one of the actually outputs here is that you have this project plan as a document. And then the next step is that you identify these interested parties and their requirements. And basically, if you want to simplify these interested parties, these are usually governments and laws and regulations. So basically, let's say if you're operating in Europe, then you have to comply with GDPR. If you're, I don't know, a critical infrastructure company, then you have to comply with NIS2. So basically, you have to identify all the laws and regulations that apply to your company and that are related to security. On the other side, you also have to identify all the contractual obligations, meaning any clients with whom you have signed an agreement, and then to identify all these security clauses within these agreements. So for example, you might have a clause in your agreement that you have to use a specific type of VPN for connecting to their systems. Then this is one security requirement that you have to take into account. Now, why is this important so early in the project? This is important because you have to actually take all of these inputs and then I would say configure your ISMS according to these inputs, because obviously you have to be compliant with all the laws and regulations. You have to be compliant with all these contractual obligations, because otherwise you're facing penalties. So to avoid this, you have to know all of these things up front, and then again include all of these requirements in your policies and procedures. Okay, as an output here, you will have this list of security requirements. This is, by the way, one of the mandatory documents. Okay, there is also an article on our website which speaks about this in more detail. It's called How to Identify ISMS Requirements of Interested Parties, and you'll see the link now in your chat window, so you can open this and read it in detail. Right, now the next step is that you define the scope and your management intention. So the scope basically means that you have to write a ISMS scope document where you define whether you're going to include your whole company in the scope or only a part of it. Now, typically if your company is less than 50 employees, so 50, then you would actually include your whole company in the scope because it's faster, it's cheaper, it's simpler. So I would definitely recommend that you include your whole company if you're a smaller one. If you're a larger company, then it's usually easier that you include, let's say, only one department or maybe one location in your scope, and that you leave the rest of your company outside of the scope. And to read more, you'll see now a link to this article called All You Need to Know About Setting the ISO 27001 Scope, so you can open this article and then read in more detail. Okay, besides this scope, you also have to define this or write this top-level information security policy. And this is where you basically define some, I would say, basic rules or basic management intention. This top-level policy is not about writing detailed rules for, I don't know, backups and encryption and so on. This top-level policy is intended primarily for the senior management to say what they want to achieve with security. This is usually very short document, and sometimes it includes top-level objectives for your ISMS, or it refers to another document which includes top-level objectives. So basically, this is how you define the scope and senior management intention. And by the way, all of these documents are mandatory. The next step is that you actually define how you will perform this risk management. And if you take a look at the whole project, usually the most complex part really is this risk management, because you have to list all the risks and then define the impact and likelihood. You have to select the control. So usually this is, especially for a beginner, this is the most difficult part. And to do this right, you actually have to define the rules, describe the rules on how you're going to do this. And this is done through this risk assessment methodology. So you definitely write the methodology before you actually start doing the risk assessment and treatment. Of course, as I mentioned, during the risk assessment and treatment, you have to list the risks, define how big they are, meaning impact and likelihood, calculate the level of risk, and then define which controls you're going to use to mitigate those risks. And as an output, here you will have this risk assessment report, which is also a mandatory document. And we'll share now with you this a link to this article called ISO 27001 Risk Assessment, Treatment and Management, the complete guide. So if you want to learn in more detail how this is done, then you can take a look at this article. All right, the next step is basically that you have to define which controls you're going to implement. And by the way, ISO 27001 offers you a catalog of 93 controls. So basically these are, let's say, 93 things that you could do to decrease risks. And I'll actually show you in a second how this looks like. This is something that there is actually a document called Statement of Applicability, which is also a mandatory one, where you actually have to define which of these controls you will implement and which of these you are not going to implement, or which are applicable and which are not applicable. And you actually make these decisions on the applicability primarily based on risk assessment and treatment that you've done in the previous step. And also, if you remember from the third step, is that where you define these requirements. So if there is a requirement for you to use, a specific type of backup, then obviously the backup control will be applicable to your company. If not because of risks, then because of this requirement from, let's say, a customer that you have. Okay, so there is an article also about statement of applicability, so you'll see now the link in the chat window. So if you want to learn more about this SOA or statement of applicability, you'll find it there. And then you have to write this risk treatment plan, and this is basically an implementation plan on how you implement those controls. So let's say that in this statement of applicability, out of these 93 controls, you selected, let's say, 85 as applicable, and let's say out of these 85, you already implemented 65. I mean, implemented prior to the project. And this will be a very often a regular situation, because most of these controls from the NXA are common sense, like backups and VPNs and defining who is responsible for what. These are, let's say, how these controls look like. So in most, you will majority of companies already have at least, I would say, a half, maybe 2/3 of these controls implemented. Anyway, if out of 85 you already implemented 65, this means that you have to implement in the future 20 controls. And this is something that then you will define through this risk treatment plan. You will define who will implement these controls, what will be the budget, what will be the resources, what will be the deadlines, these kind of things. So basically an implementation plan. And then you will have to define how to measure this effectiveness, basically how to measure actually if these controls achieved the objectives. And this is where you typically would set some kind of relevant objectives and then simply start measuring against them. So for example, if you for, I don't know, your website or your website server, you can set the objective of, let's say, availability of your website, let's say 99.99, I don't know, 7. And then you will simply measure your, on the monthly level or whatever, you will measure, you know, the availability. So this is, you know, it can be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. And yeah, you will need to use some kind of a measurement methodology or some kind of a measurement document. And yeah, you can see in the chat window now this link, this article, a link to an article called How to Perform Monitoring and Measurement in ISO 27001. So again, you can learn more about how to do it there. Okay, the next step is to basically implement all of these controls, right? So this is where you actually have to start using the risk treatment plan to start implementing the controls. And what I'll show you now is an article on our website. It's called Big Guide to ISO 27001 Clauses. So you can actually see it on the screen now. And so we'll share also the link now through a chat window, so you can access this article as well. Anyway, what is important here is that here you actually have all the clauses listed. Okay, so as you can see, it starts from clause 4 all the way to clause 10. And whenever you open any of these clauses, you will see a detailed explanations. For example, clause 4.3 is about determining the scope. So when I open it, you will see that it describes what it is. It describes which kind of a document is needed, and it describes how you actually implement this particular clause and what kind of audit evidence the certification auditors will be looking for. Now, why am I showing you this now? Because it also has all the list of all the controls. Okay, so here you have this Annex A. It starts from A5 organizational controls. There are something like 37 controls there. Then there are people controls starting from A61 to 6.8, physical controls and technological controls all the way to 34. So, and for each of these, if you want to open any of these, let's say, I don't know, threat intelligence, again, you have the explanation here, what kind of documents you might need, and basically how to implement it. So it's very useful resource, you know, for you to define what you actually have to do with these controls. Okay, going back to my presentation, yeah, so as a result of these controls, typically you will write some kind of documents. As I mentioned, I don't know, backup, you will have a backup policy which describes how to do the backup, or I don't know, for access control controls, there are 4 or 5 controls related to access control, and you will have access control policy, and then you define all of these things in this kind of a document. And by the way, you don't have to write one document for each control. Definitely not. It would be an overkill. Usually you would write one document and then cover several controls with this one document. Of course, you would have also various tasks that you have to do. Sometimes you will not write documents. You will simply perform an activity without writing a document. This is also allowed by the standard. And then I would say this is described as the next step, but in reality, this is really a parallel step to the implementation of controls, is that where you have to actually perform training and awareness in order to define, in order to actually explain to your employees how they have to perform all of these activities. This would be training, and also what are the why security is needed in the first place. This would be raising awareness. So the point here being here is that you have to be very, I would say, careful with not actually pushing new, let's say, security rules to your employees, not writing policies and procedures without actually taking time to explain to your employees what this is all about, why is this important. So I would say that again, this training and awareness always has to go in parallel to writing new policies and implementing new controls. And as the consequence, I would say, of performing training and awareness, you always have to keep records. and this is something that is also needed according to the standard. Okay, you also have the link in the chat window. It's to an article called How to Perform Training and Awareness for ISO 27001, so you can learn more there. Okay, going further, the next step is to operate the ISMS, and well, basically operate the ISMS is not one step. It's I would say something that you do continuously, right? So once you implement it, I don't know, the backup, you will be doing this, you know, every day. So it's not something that you will do only once. So operating the ISMS means that you're simply doing all of these things on a regular basis. Okay, so I don't know, using your VPN, or I don't know, approving access according to your access control policy, or doing the backup, all of these things are operating the ISMS. And of course you will have various records which are created typically automatically. So for backup, you will have backup logs. For approving the access, you will have some kind of, I don't know, an email or something like this that, you know, your manager, through which your manager approves the access. So you will typically have some kind of a written record, not for all activities, but I would say for many of them. Okay, and then you have this next step, which is also a continuous one. It's not one-off. So monitoring the ISMS, so you're basically monitoring how your ISMS is performing. So for example, I don't know, you're monitoring your backup system, if it really runs the backup every day, if there is enough memory to do so, if there are some errors, these kind of things. And one of the last steps before the certification audit is to perform this internal audit. So internal audit is not the same as certification audit, because internal audit is done by the company itself, and the results are presented only to the management of the company. They're not presented externally. So this is why it's called internal. And I would say the purpose of this internal audit is to actually prepare you to find all the problems actually before you go for certification. So this is why it needs to be done really, I would say, thoroughly, because you don't want to come to a certification audit, you know, with many problems, with many non-conformities. It's better actually that you find out about them before certification audit. Anyway, the internal audit needs to be performed by an internal auditor. Typically, this internal auditor goes through this internal auditor course, and we'll share now with you this link to this internal auditor course, which, by the way, is free on our website, and we charge only if you take the certification, if you take the exam. So if you want to get a certificate from the course, then this you have to go for the exam, and this is something we charge for. Otherwise, if you just want to go through the course, the whole course is free. All right, so this internal auditor performs an internal audit and then creates an internal audit report, and also needs to raise these corrective actions. So whenever there is something wrong, the internal auditor creates these corrective actions. Basically, this is, I would say, a systematic way for a company to resolve these problems. Okay, you also see a link to this article called Internal Auditor, the Complete Guide. So if you want to learn how internal audit is being performed, then you can take a look at this article. Okay, and then after the internal audit must come the management review. This is also one of the mandatory steps before certification audit. And this is where your senior management needs to, let's say, take a look at everything important in your ISMS. And then make some crucial decisions. And these crucial decisions could be, let's say, about, I don't know, introducing some new policies, or raising the budget for security, or changing the objectives of ISMS, these kind of things. So this is something that they have to discuss, and they need to have a formal record of this meeting. Typically, this is in the form of minutes of the meeting. And excuse me, you'll also have you'll also see now this link to this article about why is management review important for ISO 27001. Okay, I see a question from Tanya. Do we need to assess the SOA before performing the internal audit to check if the exclusions are valid? Okay, so basically the standard does not require you to do a separate assessment of the statement of applicability. The standard requires you to write, to create this statement of applicability right after your risk management and before you start implementing the controls. And you really have to, make sure that you are making that you marked all relevant controls as applicable. Of course, during the internal audit, you will assessing this is the wrong word here. During the internal audit, you will audit your whole ISMS, including the statement of applicability, and find out if everything is compliant with the standards and, of course, with your internal rules. So I hope this answers your question. If not, feel free to write an additional question. Okay, Daniel is asking, is it necessary for the internal auditor to have the certificate from an exam to comply with the standard, or is it enough to have the internal auditor and support this with the relevant documentation to have a good implementation of the internal auditing process? So it's like this. The company needs to prove to the certification auditor that the internal auditor is competent, okay? And there are two elements of this competency. One is that the internal auditor has the knowledge about the ISO 27001, and the other element is that the internal auditor has the competency or the knowledge about performing performing audits, right? So these two competencies are necessary to be proved about internal auditor towards a certification auditor. Now, there are basically two ways to do it. One way is to simply show to the certification auditor, okay, look, this internal auditor is already doing the audits for, I don't know, 5 or 7 years. He's already in ISO 27001 because he participated, I don't know, in implementation or whatever. So one way to do it is to prove this through basically a CV that this person is already competent through whatever experience he or she has. Now, if this internal auditor does not have experience, then basically the only way to prove it is by showing actually the certificate from the course. Because you can't actually, there is usually a third way to prove it. Because if you go for the course and if you pass the exam, then this shows that you know both the standard and the auditing techniques. So either this person has experience, then you show this through CV, or if this person doesn't have experience, then you show the certificate from the course. Okay, good. Yeah, let's move on with the next slide. Yeah, and basically the last step before the certification and basically the last step in the implementation, this is finally the 16th step that I was going through. So these are these improvements, right? You have to perform these continual improvements in your ISMS, and usually the best way to do it is through these corrective actions. So if you remember, the internal auditor has to raise non-conformities, and then based on these you will actually perform corrective actions. Of course, non-conformities can be found also by someone else. It doesn't have to be only by internal auditor. In any case, you have to perform these corrective actions. Again, this is I would say a systematic way for you to fix any problems and improve your security in the company. All right, so I know that this is a lot. It sounds like a lot, and basically what I'll show you now is our product. It's called Conformio, and this is basically a product which takes you through all of these implementation steps, so that it actually makes it much easier for you to do the whole implementation. So there are several things in Conformio. I'm not going to show you all of these things, but one of the most important things are these steps. Okay, so basically it takes you through 4 phases: project preparation, risk management. As you can see, it has also this risk register, security documentation. This is the 3rd phase, and basically this is where we write all these policies and procedures. And then 4th phase is the preparation for the external audit, where you basically, as you can see, one of the last steps are here, management review, internal audit, these kind of things. And then after you certify your company, then there is this maintenance where you basically, the software reminds you on what you have to do to maintain the certification. One of the elements of this, one of the features of this of Conformio is to write the documents. So it has templates, of course, for all the documents, and it has this wizard which actually takes you step by step through the document and suggests you what kind of things you can actually fill out in this document. So it's much easier, actually much quicker to write all the documents needed. And there is also this audit and evidence module, which shows you basically, what is the status of each of your documents, but also it shows you a mapping against basically all the clauses in the standard and all the controls. So basically, I don't know, you have this clause 6, which has 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, and then it says, okay, you're ready for the audit. Why? It shows you all the documents that you have written to actually comply with this particular clause, right? So it's very easy actually to make sure that you have everything that you can show also to your auditor how you're complying with each clause. Let's take some look at some controls here that you're not ready. So let's say segregation of duties. This one is not ready for an audit, and here you can actually see what the control requires and what are the implementation methods and basically the task. And as you can see here, this task is not completed, therefore this control is marked not as not ready for an audit. Okay, basically this is this is something that you can use for your implementation. I will share now with you the link to this Conformio page, and you can actually sign up for a free trial there. So if you want to test how it works, you can sign up for, I think it's a 14-day free trial, and you can do anything you want with it, and just to see if this is a good fit for you. Good. There is also another product, but I'm not going to spend your time today on it. And this product is about Company Training Academy. You can actually see a link now in this chat window. So it's basically a product that allows you to actually raise awareness and raise security awareness and train your employees about ISO 27001. So basically, it's very easy actually to you send your whole company for training or awareness, and and actually it works automatically. It sends the notifications and everything. It does very quickly. So it's very easy actually to use. So if you want to take a look a little bit, if you want to learn more about this training and awareness, you can actually open this link that you will see now in the chat window. Okay, there is a question from Sharath. Give a few insights on a new clause related to climate conditions. So basically, there is this, I would say, addition to all ISO standards, including ISO 27001. And this belongs actually to this clause number 4. And this is where you try to understand the context of your organization. And to be honest, it doesn't have too much of I would say impact on information security. You might consider the impact on the climate conditions, on the environments related to, I don't know, if you're using data centers or something like this, because obviously they spend a lot of energy. But other than this, there is not really a big impact on climate with regards to security. Obviously, it's something that is much more relevant for ISO 9001 quality management, of course for 14001 environmental management, and so on. We'll share now with you an article which speaks about this climate clause that was implemented. So I'll ask my colleague to find this article, and you can actually learn more about this new clause for climate from this article. All right, now let's move on to the next slide. And yeah, the question is, how long does it usually take to implement ISO 27001? So I would say that, you know, companies of up to 20 employees, so very small companies, it's usually up to 3 months. And usually these numbers here are if you're using some kind of a tool. Because if you're not using a tool, if you're not using any help, it will be probably longer. But if you do have some kind of a tool, then it's let's say up to 20 months, up to 3 months. If you are between 20 and 50 employees, 3 to 5 months usually. 50 to 200, 5 to 8 months. If this is more than 200 employees, probably then around a year or maybe more than a year. So again, this is the timing. Now, usually people are asking, okay, why does it take so long? I mean, you could do this in a much shorter time, but you know, this kind of information security projects are again a project that where the hardest part is change management, right? Because you have to change how people are doing something in their real life, and you know, in most cases people are not really willing to change, and then this change takes time. If you want to do this in a way that is not, I would say, too stressful for your employees, you're then introducing this change step by step. What does this mean? This means that let's say that you want to publish in total 10 new security policies. You're not publishing them all at once. Rather, you're publishing them, let's say, at once, I don't know, one policy every 2 weeks or so. And then, of course, it takes time for you to publish all these, I don't know, 10 or so policies because you're introducing them gradually, not all at the same time. It also means that, you know, if, for example, if you're, I don't know, security officer and you're leading this kind of a project, then you're spending, I don't know, maybe 1 day or 2 days per week for this kind of a project. You're not spending 100% of your time on this project because, again, it's probably, you don't have time for this, right? So all of these things are actually influencing that it can't be really, I mean, it could, but it would be too stressful to do it shorter than what I mentioned here in this slide. Good. Yeah. How much does it cost? That's actually a tough one because obviously you can't purchase, you know, a standard from a shelf, right? It's nothing like this. So there basically four elements of cost that you have to take into account. First one is cost of acquiring knowledge. Okay, you will maybe send internal auditor for internal auditor course. You might I don't know, send the project manager to, I don't know, lead implementer course. By the way, I will send you now also the link to this lead implementer course on our website. You might purchase some books, you know, these kind of things. You might buy some new technology. Okay, you might, I don't know, buy Conformio or some competitor product for implementation. You might, I don't know, use this kind of a training platform to train your employees. You might, I don't know, purchase some security technology. So all of these things are something that you have to take into account. You actually, if your company goes for a certification, this is also a cost, right? And of course, it depends on in which country you're based. But we've shared now with you this link to this certification cost calculator. So when you open this page, you will actually be able to estimate the cost for your company, and you will see that you'll have to enter, I don't know, your country, your number of employees, these kind of things, and then based on this calculator you will see an estimated certification cost. So this will give you a good, I would say, idea of what to expect. And also I would say the biggest time is really the biggest cost is usually employees' time, because all of these people that are working on the implementation are not doing something else, therefore it's a cost. So it's something also that you have to take into account. Anyway, again, this cost is not only one of these things. It's not one-off. It's not like something that can be calculated. I mean, it's not something that you purchase in a store. So you have to, you know, use a spreadsheet and try to calculate all of these elements and then come up with the cost. All right, how to approach the implementation? Typically, there are three approaches to start the project and basically to go for the implementation. The first one is that you use only your employees. And this is basically an approach where you already have knowledgeable people in your company who have done this, let's say, for a couple of times, and then you simply don't need anyone outside of your company to implement the project. For example, we are implementing ISO 27001 in 𝗏𝗲𝗴𝗏. Obviously, we're not going to use anyone from the outside. We are doing this internally. Second approach is that you actually hire a consultant to do it all, right? So basically, this is something that where you actually don't have the time, don't have the knowledge, and then you actually ask some of your some external person, a consultant, a knowledgeable person, to actually do this, to help you do this for you. So basically, then the consultant, takes you by the hand and walks you through all the implementation steps. Typically, this consultant then writes the first draft of a document. He or she also performs all the analysis, including, I don't know, risk assessment, these kind of things. This person can also perform the training and all kinds of things. So this is, I would say, a traditional approach how many companies are using this approach. And the third approach is basically something in between the first two options. And this is where your employees are implementing the standard, but they're using external know-how to do so. Okay. And this is basically what we do in 𝗏𝗲𝗴𝗏. We actually provide online products that give you the know-how, give you the tools, give you the knowledge, so that your employees can actually do it with our support, with our expert support. Now, which of these approaches is the best? It would be easiest to say that the last one is the best, but actually this is not the case. This really depends on your situation. So if you really already have knowledgeable people, again, go for the first option. Second option, I mean, if you are very short with time, if you don't have any internal resources, then it's the best actually to go for the second option, to hire a consultant. Obviously, this second option is the most expensive one, because the consultants, especially good consultants, are expensive. So you have to find enough budget for them. The third option is basically the best if you do have some, let's say, even smaller, but some time of your employees, and if you want to retain the know-how internally, and also if your budget is not too high, then basically the third option would be the best. So again, you have to think about what is your situation, and then basically choose the approach appropriately. Okay, let me see if there are any questions. Okay, so far no. Good. Yeah, let's go for the next slide, and this is about finding resources. And actually, let me share my screen again, and I'll show you the poll that I posted a week ago. And basically, the question of the poll was what do you see as the biggest problem in your ISO 27000 project? And answer the poll below. So the biggest challenge is writing the documents. 19% of the respondents optimize implementation steps, 33, and finding enough resources, 48. So half of the actual respondents say that they have a problem with finding enough resources when doing ISO 27001 projects, 42 votes. So I would say it's pretty already relevant, statistically relevant result. So going back to my slide, so how to actually find enough resources for doing this kind of implementation? I would say first and foremost, by far the most important thing is to actually get senior management commitment. Because if you don't really have your CEO or, I don't know, CTO or a CIO committed, it's better that you do not really start the project. Because, if you don't have this person committed, then you're not going to get any resources. So it's simply not worth it. So the question here is really how to make this person interested, right? And for me, the best approach is really that you present some clear business benefits to this CEO or, I don't know, whoever on the C level is. And you can actually present these benefits in a couple of ways. One way would be that you actually the company can use this certification to actually penetrate some new markets. Let's say that you want to penetrate a new market, and this market is typically very sensitive to I don't know, personal data or sensitive data. And then you actually say, look, we are certified, therefore we can keep your data safe, right? So then this certificate becomes a marketing tool or sales tool for you to actually get new clients, therefore new revenue. And if you mention new revenue and new market share or increased market share, then this is certainly something the CEOs will listen to. Or you can say that okay, you have to be, I don't know, you have to keep an existing client who demands this certification. And I don't know, if this client is, let's say, 10 or 20% of your revenues, then this is very important to keep this kind of a client, and therefore you're doing this to keep an important part of your revenue. Another example how to show business benefit is that you're basically, I don't know, complying with some other, I don't know, regulations. So for example, if your company is a critical infrastructure company in Belgium, then complying with ISO 27001 is one of the ways to basically comply with this local NIS2 law in Belgium. So basically 27001 is also could be a way to comply with NIS2. Okay, in not all countries, this is a specific case for Belgium, but in any case 27001 can be a very good let's say a basis for any kind of security implementation that you're doing. So this is the way really to speak to the senior management. You're not speaking about firewalls and backups, you're speaking about business benefits, and this is how to get their attention. Second thing that I think is very, very important is to have a very capable and good project manager. In smaller companies, this could be, I don't know, CTO who will run this project. In larger companies, you might have a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, who will run this kind of a project, and you might also have a professional project manager. All of these approaches are good as long as this person has experience, right? Because sometimes I see some of our clients are actually purchasing our products, and then they give this project to a trainee. Now can you imagine someone new in the company, I don't know, 20 plus years old, and this is the first job he or she is doing, and then they push this whole new project onto this person. Obviously it's not going to work. So you need someone really with experience and someone with I would say enough authority. So you also cannot give this to, I don't know, your system administrator, because even if this person does have experience, he or she does not have enough authority to push some of these changes in the company. So someone with experience, someone with authority, and this is the way to actually succeed and to get enough resources, because obviously this person will then find a way to obtain all the resources that are needed. If your company is, let's say, mid-size or a larger company, I would recommend that you also have the project team. So typically the project team will be heads of the departments that are the most affected by this kind of a project. If you're a small company, project team is not needed, but you will definitely need a way to deal with middle management in your company, because otherwise they will become blockers, and they will block any kind of resources that are needed, right? Because for, I don't know, risk assessment, you need time to speak to asset owners in their departments, and if the middle management doesn't allow you, then obviously you're not going to be able to do this. So either you take this route of project team and then you collaborate through the project team, or you actually have to individually speak to these middle managers and explain them what this kind of how this project can actually help them in their job. And then you can actually, I don't know, let's say that you're speaking to the head of sales, and let's say that the sales department has the problem that information is very often leaking to their competitors in the face when they're, I don't know, quoting for a big project. And then you can simply say, look, when we implement ISO 27001, you will, reduce these leakages. Therefore, you will be more effective as sales departments. Okay, this is the way to convince, right, middle managers of the on how this project can help them, right? And also, what is important for when it comes to resources is that you usually don't have to purchase new technologies for this kind of a project. Okay, you might purchase some kind of a tool, but it's it's maybe $100-200 per month. But there are no, usually you don't have to purchase some big technologies, security technologies to upgrade your core systems. Usually it's more about how you use your existing systems in a more secure way. So I don't know how you approve the access to it, how you define the configurations, these kind of things. So in most cases, companies do not have to purchase any new core systems. They simply have to organize security or organize processes in a better way so that the overall security gets better. Also, what is important is that you do not actually create an overhead without any need. So for example, if your risks are, let's say, if your risks allow you to do the backup every, let's say, 24 hours, you don't have to do the backup every 4 hours or every 6 hours. Why would you do it more often than it's needed? So don't create an overhead without any need for it, right? So this is also an approach to what we call a lean implementation to ISO 27001, where you're basically focusing on the key security areas without actually adding too much security where it is not needed. This is also a way to reduce the amount of resources that are needed. Okay, good. There is a question from Kylie. How would you approach areas of non-compliance after an internal audit? Well, it's easy. I mean, after so internal auditor has to write down the non-conformities, and then you send this non-conformity to a person who actually can make a decision there. So you have to, for example, let's say that the access is not, let's say the non-conformity is that the access is not approved according to the access control policy. And then you send it, let's say, to the head of IT, and this person needs to find out why is this happening. And then the cause could be that, one cause could be that people simply didn't read the access control policy. Then the resolution here would be that simply this document is distributed as it should be. Second cause could be that people simply don't understand how this needs to be done. Then you have to perform some kind of a short training to explain them how this approval of access is done. Or it might be that this access control policy simply doesn't make any sense. It might be too cumbersome. It might be completely out of line. Then you have to rewrite the access control policy. So this is, let's say, a way for you, for a person who is in charge, to think through what has gone wrong, or what is the cause of the non-conformity, and then to fix this cause so that it doesn't actually happen again. And this is basically how we resolve the non-conformity and basically make sure that it doesn't happen again. Okay, great. Yeah, let's then move on to a very short conclusion and then Q&A. So, this experience with the 27001 implementation can be, I would say, more positive than you expected, but only if you really plan the whole project properly. And of course, for that purpose, you can use Advisor as /Conformia software. And we already sent you the link for opening a free trial. But if you want a free demo from our Conformia expert, we'll send you also now this link, and you can actually open this link and schedule a call, and then our expert will show you how Conformia works in more detail. All right, now let's just briefly go through the Q&A. Before I start, just a couple of notes. Feel free to ask me any questions about ISO 27001. You'll see my email on the screen now. And you can also follow me on LinkedIn and YouTube. Very often I share on LinkedIn, I share news about ISO standards, 27001 cybersecurity, governance, and these kind of things. And on YouTube, I have lots of videos around ISO 27001. So, feel free to follow me on these channels and to learn more. My next webinar will be next Wednesday at the same time. It will be about if IT suppliers must comply with NIS2 or ISO 27001. This is really about IT suppliers that are suppliers to critical infrastructure companies. So if this is of interest to you, then feel free to click one of these links. You will see them in the chat window to sign up for this next webinar. Okay, let's see one question that came from Daniel. What aspects should we keep in mind when implementing the toolkit when the purpose of implementation is to increase market value? I'm not sure what you mean by market value, but if you basically want to increase your market share, well, basically, if you have the certificate, if you want to get the certificate to really increase your market share, then first of all you have to make sure that you certify at least the part of your company which is relevant for your most important clients. Okay, so if you're not certifying the whole company, if you're certifying only one part of it, then make sure that this is the relevant part. Second thing is make sure that you have a reputable certification body, because if you're using some certification body with I would say no relevance, then your customers are not going to believe in it. Okay, so there are no other questions, so let me wrap up the webinar. We're just already past the time, so just a few words before we finish. So as I mentioned, this 1 hour webinar was too short to go into details like risk management, I don't know, internal audit, these kind of things, and for that purpose, feel free to take a look at my other webinars. But also you can take a look at Conformia, which will actually take you through this whole process. And to download this presentation deck, you can actually, we'll share the link on the same page where you're watching the webinar now on YouTube or LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, simply stay for maybe, don't close this page where you're watching the webinar now. And we'll actually put the link where you can download it in about 10 minutes. So just in 10 minutes, go to this comment section and you will be able to download it there. And if you join through Zoom, we'll send you the link to download the webinar deck through a presentation deck in email, and you will receive this by tomorrow. And you'll also see a short survey, so it's really short, 3 questions, and I would appreciate if you give your feedback, because this will let me know how good, how well I was doing in the webinar. And this would be all. Thank you very much for your participation, and I hope you have enjoyed this webinar.